Hello all, and I hope you are all well in these extraordinary times. I'd like to welcome you all to the Fintech Finance Virtual Arena, where we're going to be hosting you all today. In this special arena, we're going to be discussing the pretty big elephant in the room, COVID-19, or as Donald Trump likes to refer to it as the Chinese virus.
No, don't swear, Ali. Don't swear.
I won't do that. We're looking at COVID-19, and in the only way that we're qualified to do so, which is in relation to fintech, because I am not a doctor, but I kind of want to have a look today about what this is going to be having in terms of fintech. Now, I want to get you guys to introduce yourselves. I am joined today by Liz Lumley, a long-term guest, and has even hosted some of our channel. Now, Liz, what do you do? Who are you?
What do I do? I'm Liz Lumley. Really, that's what I am. I've been in fintech for quite some time. Was a journalist for quite some time. I'll get into that later. So I've had lots of points in my career where I was self-employed, where I was freelance, where I worked from home. So we can go into some of that later on. But right at the moment, I'm a director at VC Innovations, and we put together what we call content, community, and experiences to get the tagline in. So we're the architects of the FinTech Talents festival events. And a lot of what we do is we put together physical events where people come together as a community. And we were actually talking about this morning on our daily stand-up. What we do actually hasn't changed. It's just the portal of how people come together. Our new tagline now is making distance irrelevant. So we still put together content, we still put together experiences, communities where we're planning a really exciting activity for this spring. It's just going to be through a different portal, which is probably what we're doing right now on our laptops, and coming together that way. I mean, the technology is available. And we should use it. So we're planning events, we're planning more content, we're wrapping up our digital offerings. So we've got a lot of exciting things planned over the coming months.
Absolutely, and I believe that us at Fintech Finance will be a media partner for
Of
the for
course,
some
you
of the
guys
cool
are
stuff happening.
friends and
Um,
family, Ali.
we also have Hannah, who has been doing some very cool articles. In fact, Hannah actually got in contact with me, and I met Hannah because she said, "I've written some incredible articles. What do you think?" She passed the Sue test, who is our magazine editor, and is now doing a bunch of writing for us. So, Hannah, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I'm Hannah. I have a very small agency of one where I write either for fintechs mostly or about fintechs really. My favourite topic is to talk about fintech in my beautiful home country of Wales because I really like the attitude that it's being used to propel a whole nation of people out of unemployment and into the future. So that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Well, of course, you're in Wales, which is way right now. You need to head to Wales. You need to be in a big old traffic. Have you seen the traffic jams in Snowdon? It's
No, I
crazy.
haven't. I've been stuck inside, so.
Well, as old Boris keeps reminding us, these are unprecedented times. Despite this, some fintechs and banks have taken to this disaster in some quite innovative ways, both from a PR and a CX perspective. Let's have a look at some examples. Liz, have there been any companies that you've seen that, particularly from a PR and a CX perspective, you've actually gone, huh, that's different, that's exciting? Or who's been some of the ones that warm your heart?
Well, I mean, I hate to use PR in a PR perspective because it hits my brain as kind of cynical. I think a lot of what's happening now, banks are looking at business models and looking the way they offer products, but they've kind of been kickstarted in because of the virus, because of this what's going on globally. So, I mean, I think Barclays coming out and saying that they're having a holiday for mortgages. They're not going to charge for overdrafts. I know before the virus, there's a lot of controversy about charging for agreed overdrafts and unagreed mortgage overdrafts. I think that's a very good move to look at that, and those sort of small things help ordinary people. Knowing that if you work in retail, if you work in hospitality, you work in travel, you're going to need that mortgage holiday. It's this is the reality we're in now. So I'm really happy to see a lot of banks sort of doing that. And I think it's a very, very good move. And also there's been a few, the fintech community is both small and large. Everyone knows each other. And there's been a few sort of initiatives where people have come together to sort of, to start progress. There's a group that came together, Fronted, and a few others to look at, help for the self-employed. There was an SME consortium with Trade Ledger coming together, looking at helping out small businesses. So I really like to see positive action where people come together saying, I can build this, let's do this, let's help, let's look at the business model, let's see what tech we have that we can use to fix this. And it feels really positive and warm, and a lot about what makes the fintech community sort of really a nice place to be in.
Absolutely. Hannah, did you see the COVID credit thing that Fronted and Lemon FS did? I don't know if you saw that, Hannah.
Yes, it has warmed my heart totally. I think it's so lovely, especially because I am a very small business. So personally, it's really exciting that fintech can be used to help people who are independent and they might feel very alone right now. And I think it's not just a sort of financial benefit, but it's also a psychological one, that there are people who are very, very skilled who can help you to just very simply and very easily get everything you need to the government so that you can get your grant. I think that's the magic of fintech, just in 2 words: COVID credit.
Absolutely, because the thing that at Fintech Finance, a lot of our extended family as a whole, so like a lot of my producers, video team, their other halves are nurses and doctors. So we were quite high risk. We were thinking, it'll probably come from Lewis's other half or whoever. Again, I am not a doctor. I run a video production company, and so what can I do? Well, the best thing I can do is things like this, because with all the best will in the world, I'm probably not someone who can get trained quickly to be any kind of medical profession. And that's what's so nice about fintech, is you have the guys at Credit Kudos, Fronted, 11FS, who they're not doctors, but they can create something that can help people who are self-employed be able to show how much they earn easily. That's what's really nice about it. It's everyone doing the best that they can to direct it this way.
So can I put a little bit of a sort of a plea to the wider industry, if you don't mind? Do you mind if I do that?
Of course, of course.
I mean, I've been for most of my career I was a journalist, and for a period about 7 years I was a freelance journalist. And after I left Startup Bootcamp, I was freelance, self-employed for about 2 years before I came together with Fintech Talents. This is not related to the virus, but this is in general, and I think it's just much more important now. If you're a company that has hired a freelancer to produce content, to produce videos, to work on a project, to do research, pay those invoices. Just please pay it. It's so important. I have experienced having to chase 500-pound invoices for 6 months. And that makes a huge difference for small businesses, for sole traders, for freelancers. I know cash flow and working capital is a big issue, but please, if you've hired someone to produce something for you and they're freelance, the most important, best thing you can do for them is pay those invoices on time. It makes a huge difference.
Thank you, Liz. That's very nice of you. I'm in that situation now. I'm in that situation now, and it actually got me to thinking that fintechs could also be the answer, because I've seen that there are a lot of fintechs, like I made a note of a few, like debt collection fintechs, which have got a really good reputation, like True Record or Collection AI or Collection Hub. And I think that they're probably going to see quite a rise of use in the future as this goes on, because I don't know about other people, but for me, I spend more time chasing invoices now than I do writing content. And a lot of these sort of fintechs, which are designed for gig workers, like consultants, self-employed freelancers, like Zago, I've got them here, Portafly or Tapoli, I think that they're going to be really useful. And I think fintech, the remote way to get your money or get support or get loans, is actually going to be one of the things that can save us in these times where we have to work from home and we can't get out and we can't go chasing and we can't really take people to court. So I think fintech could be our saviour. I hope so.
And on that note, I've also got to say, even if you can't, tell people. Be kind of don't just hide away. Keep everyone kind of up to date of where you are. We're working with
So some other time, Ali, I'll show you my list of excuses.
Oh, really?
Not paying. My favorite one, I have to be, and I'm sorry, I know you like this. My favorite excuse of all time is we have a brand new accounting system and our CFO has gone to a 2-month holiday to Bali and he's the only one who knows how to use it.
Oh, wow.
That's a lie. Anyway.
Well,
let's look back about because it's not just I'm trying to be as positive as possible, and Corona is something that I think 3 months ago people weren't expecting it, even though there was a lot of talk about it. There will be disasters in the future. So, compared to other industries, how well positioned do you think fintech and finance as a whole is positioned to really cope with something like Corona?
Well, one of the things I think is interesting about what we're going through right now, and I was kind of comparing it in my head to what happened during 9/11, or what happens when there's sort of like a natural disaster, like a hurricane or a tsunami. Even with 9/11, that was kind of, there were localized emergencies. I mean, I'm someone who got on a plane on September 12th, 2001. So the airline industry did not shut down immediately after 9/11. It shut down in the United States. So what's going on right now is global. It's affecting everyone. It's affecting sort of the global capitalist economy. And that kind of puts everyone all in the same boat. And because of that, there's kind of an opportunity with that. We can't just think, oh, well, the United States is having an emergency right now, or Asia is having an emergency right now. We're all in this emergency. So putting it in that mindset, I think will hopefully change the way a lot of companies and individuals react to the emergency. I mean, I think I'm hoping that the fintech world and the financial services world is very well suited to react, because how many years have we read articles about no one's going to branches anymore? Banking is not done in a physical space. It's done online. It's done on your phone. It's automatic. All of this stuff we've been working towards for a very long time. We should be able to hunker down and be able to serve our businesses and our individuals in this, we're home now. We're online. We're online anyway. It's just a slight shift. So I'm hoping that we're very well suited to hopefully survive this global pandemic.
Fintech is kind of a funny one, isn't it? Because this is probably the first major challenge that it's had. And while on the face of it, it's so much better suited than traditional finance to be remote, because it has that mindset and because everything about it is remote from the start. On the other hand, it's never really experienced this kind of stress before. So it's the first time it's really having to face up to this. Whereas traditional wealth managers or traditional financiers, they've had this for decades and decades. They've done this kind of thing before, so they're better suited. And I think that's reflected in some of what's been going on recently. For example, with the volatility, the trading platform Robinhood in the US, crashed. So some of them are coping very well. Like, for example, Glint, which is a gold trading app, is doing extremely well with more than 700% more users, whereas others are just completely crashing because they don't understand how to cope with these different scenarios, and you only get one chance really to get it right. So I think it's an interesting space, and I think it's become quite Darwinian at the moment, and it's going to be really the survivest of the most fintech fittest, I guess.
So I read, so interesting on that. I'm glad you brought this stuff about sort of trading and wealth management. There was an article that was on Finextra that I saw this morning that the MiFID phone recording rules are going to be suspended because people are working from home. And I'm thinking, oh, we're back to insider trading again. How many sort of regulatory infractions are we going to see in capital markets? Because you don't have to record your phone, but we'll see what happens down the road.
Well, that's the thing, because on the customer facing angle, where do you really kind of see each other face to face? Well, it is branches, and it's branches, and then it's a little bit kind of on the wealth side, but mostly it's online. It's through the phone. I'm thinking more on the back end. What's going to be happening, because a lot of people working in security, they kind of need to set up their VPN networks. I think the demand for things like VPN networks, like be able to do call recordings at home, that's something that I think is gonna increase rapidly.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to look at some of the bank functions that can't be done in the cloud because of regulatory concerns. People who it's very difficult for them to set up a work from home environment. Yeah, that whole back end plumbing banking issue is being sort of, you can hear thousands of people, trying to work that out right now in the city about how that's gonna be efficient.
Do you think that regulators are going to be a lot more relaxed on the banks throughout this period?
Well, that's what I mentioned. The MiFID II phone recording is now, they're relaxing that requirement. I think they're going to have to. I mean, I think one of your questions coming up where you talked about some businesses that aren't responding well, I think we're going to really see like who takes a hard line and who realizes we're all in the same boat, and there's going to be a very stark difference. And I think the UK regulators are always a bit more progressive than a lot of other countries and central entities. So I think they will not. I don't want to get into trouble here and say everything's relaxed now. It's a big party, but I think they're going to have to be understanding of a lot of people are going to have to there's a adjustment period, and I'm hoping that regulators understand that adjustment period is inevitable.
In the UK, I think that the FCA has been extremely quiet. Like, some people have even said that the silence is actually deafening, and I think it's because everything is moving so quickly now, and they're not agile really. They're quite a sort of bulky, bureaucratic kind of process, and now they have to work very, very quickly. So personally, I think that they're just sort of trying to find their balance, find their feet, and then work out what they're going to do, but they need to wait for the world to stop moving around them for just a few seconds first.
Absolutely. Well, what I do want to know, though, is I don't really want to be kicking people when they're down, but who has missed the mark? Who are going to look back at this and go, you have not handled that situation well? And there are a few that kind of I understand where they were coming from, and I think the intention was there, but they kind of, again, missed the mark. Sports Direct, I follow the intention, but I think he completely misread and completely missed the mark there. But particularly in the fintech space, is there any organisation that you think you need to be better?
I'm trying to think specifically in the fintech space. I think going back to the wider industry. I know that you mentioned in your questions like Weatherspoons, for example, and I know Virgin's been getting a lot of not much love on social media as well. Going back to what I mentioned before, kind of the difference between the days after 9/11 and what's going on right now with the global pandemic. There are business considerations that need to be done and taken, and you can look at things in a vacuum and think, oh, this company made this decision because it made sense from a free market capitalism business point of view, and I'm a free market capitalist myself. But I think that we've been seeing prior to the pandemic, and now this is in very, very sharp relief right at the moment. There needs to be a balance between what's good for business and what's good for society and humanity. And, it's great, 500 people, you're fired, bye-bye. Well, that might be good for your business short term, but since bad for humanity and society, it's going to be bad for your business long term. And I think post this, when we come out the other side and we can actually leave our homes and meet other people, the businesses that didn't quite put that into their business strategy, into that equation, what are the long-term effects this is going to have on society and humanity? I think they're going to, when you mentioned PR earlier, that's a bad PR move. And I think that's going to have ramifications for their business long-term. So I hope they feel secure with the short-term decisions they're making. I think it's a mistake.
As a writer, a lot of my friends ask me to write difficult emails for them, or like difficult responses to things, and I've had quite a few people recently who've been, for example, due to start a new job next week, and they've moved house and they've quit their old job, and then they were just dropped. So there's been some shocking corporate behaviour, companies behaving very badly. But in the fintech space, I have to say, I'm quite proud to say I think it's more that some fintechs are just doing a lot and some are not doing enough. So I mentioned Glint earlier. They had more than 700% increase in usage, but they haven't sort of used that in a nice way. They haven't done anything with that success, whereas other fintechs are struggling. But if you compare that to, for example, Revolut, who are teaming up with food banks to try and get more emotional and food support to people, or North Oak, who are really like fighting for the rights of small, medium enterprises with the government to try and get them more money, or over in Wales, Tramshed Tech have worked together with government, with lots of different tech firms like Amplify and Business DevOps, and well, there's loads really, and they're all working together to create workshops and propel businesses. American Express, they're doubling, they're matching every donation towards the coronavirus pandemic. There's a few like that. A lot of crowdfunders are doing a lot of work as well. WeFunder has done a lot.
Yeah.
And I think some fintechs have just been extraordinary, and I really do take my hat off to them, and they've made the others look pretty bad. So I think that's where the shocking fintechs have been, the ones who've just been pretty quiet and haven't really helped in the way that they had the power to.
I have to say, on the subject of Revolut, I did initially, because they launched in America, and I did initially think, that's not the best timing. But I think that had been on the road for quite some time. They had been committed, and they kind of got to the point of no return. So kind of looking back at it now, I think it seemed more just bad luck as opposed to bad judgment for Revolut going live in America, because and then of course conversely they've partnered a lot with food banks. All right, guys. Top 5 time. The rule with this is we can always put more than 5 in. There's never 5, and they're not all the top. Who in the UK particularly do you think have responded incredibly well that we can put into this box? I want to put one in there first because I saw it about an hour ago and I thought it's incredible. Do you know Flock Insurance?
No.
Amazing company. They do drone insurance. They basically connect up to your drone app on your phone, and depending on your geolocation, depending on your drone model, depending on your history and on your flight ability, it automatically insures you. So if you're in the middle of a field in Wales, it's going to be 20p. If you're by Canary Wharf, it's going to be 20 quid. And if you're by an airport, it says do not fly. They've just announced a thing that if they've got a 10,000 plus fund, that if you are flying your drone for corona purposes, they will insure you for free. Whether that be dropping medical supplies, whether that be surveillance, whatever it may be. And they're encouraging people to get creative of how to use the drones. And they're a small company, but I love that because they're doing what they do best and applying it directly to corona. I want to put Flock in there. Who else are you thinking to put in this in the top 5, never top box?
I want to pop in the one I just mentioned, WeFunder, and I have all my reasons why here. I wrote them down for you. So, WeFunder at the moment, they're doing 4 major initiatives. They're based in the US and they're a crowdfunding platform. And their initiatives to help coronavirus they are investing between $50,000 and $1 million in any startups which are working to help support with coronavirus. So this is like biotech, for example, or remote education, anything at all in that field. The second thing they're doing is they're investing in a kind of pandemic fund. So any startups like directly tackling coronavirus or medical startups, they're investing in them. The third thing they're doing is they have a disaster loan program. So if you want to support your favorite small business, then you can, and they will help you. And I think they're even going to match it, but I'm not sure. And the fourth thing that they're doing is help a startup, which is quite similar. And you support a startup and they will match your donation. And if you want to support it with mentoring or collaboration, then they'll get involved as well. So the CEO is called Nick Tomarello. And I just think he's been a bit of a legend, really. So that's why I'm putting WeFunder in there.
That's a great one. Liz.
You know, I hate putting things in a box, Ali. No. But I mean, I do like, Nationwide has opened up hours for elderly and vulnerable customers. I know we talk a lot about being online, but there are a lot of people. Although we all need to stay home if we need to, there are people who aren't experienced and comfortable with being online, and taking care of that customer base is important. I'm just looking at my to get all the companies in. I do like the SME task force that was put together by Trade Ledger, Wiser Funding, NIP, North Row. I think that's a very good. I like consortiums. I like when the industry comes together. Again, I mentioned before the other for sole traders, for freelancers, the Fronted 11FS. I'm going to miss the other companies that are involved in that project. I think is very good. And of course, I mentioned earlier, the Barclays and other banks are offering mortgage holidays, suspending the overdraft fees, and also upping the contact list to £45. I think is that was a very good move. It makes a lot of sense. As long is the least thing, things you don't have to touch. I think is a good move, and that was a quick move. So I approve that.
I really like that happened without people campaigning for it. It just suddenly, I just got a bunch of press releases say, hey, from midnight it's going to be £45. Like, fantastic. Yeah,
that's the way Fintech should work. It should be just like boom, done. It makes it easier. Yeah.
Exactly. I know as well, on the kind of the back end side, the likes of Bottomline are doing some work for automatic payments for NHS staff. Newer Pay as well have set up a thing where it's allowing donations automatically to the NHS. And there's been a lot of, I think almost every single trading platform, well, I've kind of lost count, but Air Wallets is one where they've kind of suspended all fees. There seems to be quite a nice rallying point around elements like this. There's a lot in that box actually, and of course Revolut with food banks as well.
And Oak North, I want to nominate them for the box too, because I think they've been really fighting for their client base. And personally, I quite like it when companies sort of stay in their box. Like, for example, we're just talking about Fintechs now and not stray too far out. And I like that they've really focused on their customer base, and they're really just working on trying to help small, medium enterprises. And they're using the full body of their strength to go to government, to pressure government, to help and try and show what can be done and what should be done and what people need. And I just think, thank you. Good for you. That's really one of the most useful things that they could be doing in this time. So Oak North, I think, smashing it.
Absolutely. Shout out to Rishi and Valentina there. Well, that's is that more than 5? As long as we got more than 5.
The box is infinite, Ali. It's this big.
Exactly. I know, but you need to have top 5 for the SEO, because with a nice big red arrow as well. Well, guys, thank you so much. Good to see you all staying at home. Thank you again for joining us, Hannah. Liz, happy birthday as well for this week.
Thank you for my happy birthday song as well. I was really happy with that.
There were a few. It was Liz's birthday this week, and I think Nigel Walsh and Victor. There was a few people singing happy birthday to Liz on Twitter. Yeah, we'll thank you very much for all this, and we will see you for the next section of the FF Virtual Arena. So big thank you to Hannah Duncan and to Liz Lumley for joining me.
Safe, everybody.
Thank you.